Next, we will discuss about non-static members or instance members. We can call non-static or instance members. So we will see these non-static members and their execution control flow. How internally it will execute all non-static members. Like we have non-static variables, non-static blocks, non-static methods, constructors. How it will execute all those internally, we will see now. First, I will make a note about this. Non-static members and their control flow. So first we will make a note about this. What members are called non-static members? Class level members which don't have static keyword in their creation statement. If we have static keyword in class level members, then that is static member in our class. But if class level members which don't have static keyword in its creation statement, then it is called a non-static member. Class level members which don't have static keyword in their creation statement are called non-static members. Next, what are the types of non-static members we have in our Java? Types of non-static members. So how many types of non-static members we have in our Java? We have 4 types. First one is non-static variables. Next, non-static blocks. Next, non-static methods. And next we have constructors. Constructors also comes under non-static member. Constructors. All these are non-static members in our Java. We will discuss one by one how all this execution is going to happen internally. First, we will discuss about non-static variables. What are non-static variables? The class level variable that does not have static keyword in its definition is called a non-static variable. First, we will discuss about non-static variables. Non-static variables. So, what are non-static variables? the class level variable that does not have static keyword in its definition is called non-static variable. So I will show you the example. For example, I have some class example, and this class contains some variables int x is equal to 10, int y is equal to 20. These two are my non-static variables of my example class. This is how we can create non-static variables in our Java. These two are non-static variables. So we will see how these non-static variables will be executed inside JVM. We will see when and where and how, by whom these non-static variables will get memory. We will see every concepts of non-static variables. Non-static variables will get memory in heap area. We have seen in our JVM architecture example. So non-static variables will get memory location in heap area in continuous memory locations by JVM. Non-static variables will get memory location in heap area in continuous memory locations by JVM itself. But when it will create memory for our non-static variables, when object is created, it will create memory for our non-static variables in our heap area. We will see programmatically how internally it will execute. First, I will make a note about this. Non-static variables get memory location in heap area in continuous memory locations by JVM when object is created. So we will see how it will execute internally. First, I will create a class. Some sample class. Inside this class, I will create non-static variables. Int x is equal to sum 10. Int y is equal to 20. These are my non-static variables. Now I want to print these non-static variables in my main method. I will show how it will create memory. Public static void main. Inside main method, string array args. Inside this main method, first I will print system.out.println main. I will create this example class object because to get memory for non-static variables inside JVM, we have to create object. For static variables, no need to create object. JVM will create for static members memory. For static members, memory will be created by JVM when class is loaded into JVM. But for non-static members, we have to create object. New example. This is my sample class. This is my sample class. Now we will see how this class will be executed inside JVM. Assume this is our JVM architecture. Inside JVM architecture, we have method area, heap area, and Java stacks area. Java stacks area, and I'm not creating PC registers and native method stack because we don't have any topics in this to discuss about PC registers and native method stack. Here our topic is about non-static variables, how it is getting memory inside JVM architecture. For that we can learn with further to know how memory will be created. Method area, heap area, Java stacks area is enough. This is my method area. This is my heap area. This is my Java stacks area. So whenever this class is loaded into JVM, how it will load this class into JVM? First, method area will see whether this class is available in method area or not. It is not available in my method area. Then this method area will request our class loaders. We have 3 class loaders we have discussed in our class loaders topic. If you have any doubt, you can see our previous videos. From class loaders, it will get our class sample into method area. Then it will create our class method sample class data inside method area. This is my class data, sample class data. My sample class contains x and y and main method. Here you are observing or not, our x and y is not initialized with values, because when execution starts, then these values will be initialized with 10 and 20. First, execution starts from main method. How? In Java stacks area, by default, two threads will be created. We have discussed in our Java stacks area. It will create main thread by default. This is my main thread. This inside main thread, it will create a stack frame to execute my main method. We have discussed for every method one stack frame will be created. This is my main method stack frame. Inside this is my main method stack frame. First, when execution starts, it will print main from our main stack frame in our console. How it will print? Because I have written, when control comes to main method, my stack frame is created inside main thread, then execution will be started, system.out.println. First main will be printed on my console, then it will create e object, example object with e reference. It will create example object which is having e reference. This is my example object. This example e is equal to new example is a object of our sample class or not? For objects, we have discussed in our JVM architecture. When we create objects in our class, where it will create these objects? It will create all these objects in our heap area. Now I have one object. This one object will be created inside my heap area. Whenever it creates object for our, I given name as example. This is not example. This is my sample class. This is my sample class object. When this object is created inside heap area, it will initialize my x and y variables with its data. X variable is initialized with my data 10. And y data is initialized with 20. And I forgot to tell that before initializing this 10 and 20, my x variable and y variable will store default value in our x and y. This is my default values. When it is initializing my non-static variables, then these default values will be destroyed and the object data is stored in our x and y variables. And this object will be having some reference, some number 1010, and this reference will be, this object will be pointing to my e reference, and inside this e reference this address will be stored. This is how non-static variables will get memory inside JVM architecture. And how many objects we can create in our one single class? You will have a doubt. You can create multiple classes of your sample class. You can create hundreds of thousands of lakhs of classes, lakhs of objects you can create in your class. Depends on your usage. Next we will see how to print the data which we have in our class. For example, I have some student class or employee class. That class contains some data like employee ID or student ID, name and address. All those data will be stored in our class. So how we can print the data in our console, we will see now. So just go to Notepad. I will create a class, some employee. This is my employee class. My employee class contains some int employee ID is equal to some number 56546, and also it contains name string employee name is equal to some name Hemant, and next some string company is equal to IBM. So this is how data will be stored in our variables. So if you want to print this data, how you will print? Public static void main string array args. Inside this main method, you have to create employee object, employee sum e1 is equal to new employee. Now I have created employee object. I want to print this employee object data in my console. So if you create 100 employee objects, we have discussed just now, all the non-static variables data will be stored in your objects, because non-static variables will get memory when you create object. If you create 100 objects non-static variables data will be stored in 100 objects like copies. So now we will print this e1 object, system.out.println. Inside this I want to print my e1 object. So we will see what it will print. It will not print our data, because this println will print the object data has hash code value. It will generate a hash code value in our hexa string format for my e1 reference. I will show you. Just save it, Ctrl S. So this is my employee class, employee.java. Now we will execute this class. Just open command prompt. First we have to compile this class java c employee.java. I have successfully compiled. Now I will execute java employee. Here you are seeing, right, whenever I am executing my java with employee class, it is printing employee with some hash code generated value. It is not printing my data which I have in my employee class, because this println internally uses toString method to print objects information. It will generate a hash code value in hexadecimal format, and it is a predefined method which is available in our java.lang class. Now we will see how to print this data in our console. Just what you have to do is, you should not give your values to these variables, because if you give values to these variables, non-static variables directly, then if you want to create 100 employee objects, for that 100 employee objects, same copies will be stored. The same data will be stored in your 100 objects. That's the reason you should not give your values to your non-static variables directly. Just remove this. Now I have just declared these variables. I did not initialize. When you have to initialize means, if you want to get, you will not be having only one employee in any company, you will be having some lakhs, thousands of employees in your company. That's the reason data will be different for every object. For example, now for E1 object, for this E1 object, I want to store EID is equal to some 5645, and I want to store ename is equal to month, E1 dot company is equal to IBM. This is my E1 data object values. If I create data with my E1 object reference, then this data is only for this E1 object, employee E1 object reference. This data you will not get in all employee objects. So this is how we can create multiple employee class objects with their with different data. You will not get same data in your non-static variables, because you should not give your values directly to your non-static variables. You have to give your values with your object reference with non-static variables. Now we will print this E1 object in our console, but we have discussed about toString method. This toString method is a predefined method which is available in our java.lang object. So it is a predefined method in different class, but how we can write in this class, you will get a doubt, because whatever the classes you are creating, either it is example class or any class which is related to project, either it is API, any class, all the classes in our Java is subclass of our object class. This employee class is also a subclass of java.lang object. If you see your bytecode or after compiled code, it will add extends java.lang object to our class. For every class, whatever the class you are writing, after compiling our class, it will add this extend java.lang object to my class, and it is extending my object class. That means my employee class is subclass of my object class or not. If my employee class is subclass of my object class, then I can override that toString method in our subclass, right? That's the reason we will override the toString method from our object class. Why we are overriding the toString method? To return object information in a string format, not in hexadecimal format. I want to print my employee data here, not in hexadecimal format. That's the reason it is printing in hexadecimal format, because my toString method which I have in object class is having some logic to generate hexadecimal number. So I don't want hexadecimal format. I want to print this data with whatever I have in my employee class object. So I will override public string toString method. Inside this method, return employee ID. What is my non-static variable name of employee ID? EID. You have to give this EID here. Next, I want to go to next line. That's the reason I'm using /n. Next, I have ename plus ename. Next, I want to give line gap, and I want to print company name. Company /n to give line gap. So I want to print these values. I will make it clearly. So what we are doing here, I am printing all those three variables data, three variables object data on my console by overriding toString method from my object class. Now we will see how it prints our data. Just save it, Ctrl S, go to command prompt, javac employee.java. For my company, I have given capital letter C. That's the reason we are getting error. I have changed it to small. Now save it. Go to command prompt, javac employee.java. Now it has successfully compiled. Now I will execute java employee. You can see here it is generated our data of my E1 object. Inside my E1 object of employee class reference, this E1 reference of employee object is having data which is employee ID, employee name, company. All this data we are printing on our console. EID 5645, employee name Hemant, company IBM. Now I have given values to this E1 reference because I did not give here, because if I want to create one more employee class object, employee E2 is equal to new employee E2 dot EID is equal to sum2323 E2 dot ename is equal to some other name like John. e2 dot company is equal to IBM. So I have created two employee class objects. The two employee objects will not be having same data, right? Two employees will be having different data. That's the reason I am not initializing my data to my non-static variables directly. I am initializing by using a reference of this object. You can create 100 employee objects, you can create thousands, you can create multiple objects of your employee classes, and you have to give values by using object reference to this non-static variables. Now I want to print this e2 object system dot out dot println e2. Just save it, Ctrl S. Now go to console. This is my console. Just compile it. Java C employee.java. I have compiled. Now I will execute Java employee. So here you are seeing, right, two employee objects which is having two different values. This is how we can use toString method in our class to execute to print the data of our objects. Till now we have seen how to create static variables and how to create non-static variables. Now we will discuss about how to access those static variables and non-static variables. We will see now. Accessing static variables and non-static variables. How you can access static variables and non-static variables? First we will discuss about static variables. How we can access static variables? We can access static variables directly by its name. Directly by its name. And also we can call by using class name. And how we can access non-static variables? Non-static variables you can access only with object reference. Object referenced variable name. Non-static variables you can access only by using object referenced variable name. Object referenced variable name is nothing but, here we have created sample object with e reference. This e is called a reference of my sample object. Reference of object of my sample class. Like this you will be having sample s is equal to new sample, sample s1 is equal to new sample, s2, s3. You will be having so many reference. Like that, if you want to access this non-static variables, you can access it by using this object reference. We will see programmatically how to access. Just create a class some sample 05. This is my sample class. In this I will create some static int a is equal to sum 10. and static int b is equal to sum 20 and int x is equal to sum 30 and int y is equal to sum 40. These are my static variables and non-static variables. How I can access these static variables and non-static variables? Public static void main string array args inside my main method. I will just write system.out.println. I want to access static variables. Just now we have discussed static variables you can access directly with its name. And how to access, and also we have seen static variables you can access by using class name. We will see how to access. Example.a, sorry, my class name is sample05, right? Sample05.a and sample05.b. This is how you can access static variables by using class name. Now we will see how to access non-static variables. To access non-static variables, I already discussed with you hundreds of times. We have to create object of that class sample05 s sum s2 reference is equal to new sample05. I have created my class object with s2 reference. By using this s2, you have to call non-static variables s2.a. My non-static variable name is x, right? X is equal to 30. Here I have to call x. Next, system.out.println. This is my x. This is my y. My object reference is s2. s2.y. This is how you can access non-static variables by creating object. Why without creating object we cannot access non-static variables? You will get a doubt. In JVM architecture itself we have seen how internally it will create memories for static variables or static blocks. When class is loaded, all the static members will be loaded and memory will be created. But for non-static variables or non-static members, it will create memory only when object is created, right? That's the reason when you create sample object, it will create memory for our non-static variables. Now memory is created. If you want to access those non-static variables by using this reference, object reference, you have to call that non-static variable. We will execute this. Just save it, Ctrl S. Sample05.java. Now we will execute this. Java C sample05.java. Now we will, I have compiled. Now we will execute this class sample05. See, clearly it is printing a value 10, b value 20, a value 10, b value 20. This is static members. First AB is I am accessing directly. And second AB I am accessing by using class name second AB, and xy is printing as 30 40 because I am creating object of sample class, sample05 class. That's the reason. Non-static variables also we are printing by using object reference.